Hello, Warriors. TGIF. Who's ready for the PCE? And if you're positioned big in front of it, PCE means pips could evaporate.
I knew you would come up with something clever. Good morning, Dale.
Good morning. So be careful. Don't collect your pips in invisible ink, and maybe better to react to the reaction than try and guess it like a roulette bet. So I could tell that the crew had a wild night or afternoon scalping the end. Did pips evaporate trading this, or were they accumulated? Come on, Ryan.
Something got scalped. It wasn't pips. It's my hairline again.
All right. Okay. So I mean, this candle was something, and that's all in 15 minutes. This candle. God, it was down here for an infinitesimal second or so.
Yeah.
And just came back, and the same thing on this wick. And we ended up, higher anyway, right?
Yeah.
So 15-minute charts diverging, but, most of, I don't launch a lot of charts, a lot of trades on that. The 4 hours confirming big time. What's a reading?
What's it confirming? It's still going up.
Yeah, and the momentum confirmed with it. So it's nothing I could try and top pick here. Thoughts going forward? I know, isn't it tempting to try and get short at some level up here?
Oh, yeah, at some level, that's exactly.
Which one do you want? 152, 155?
Dale, I said that like 300 pips ago, so we can say it every 300 pips if you want.
Well, some level is CNBC precision trading.
Yeah,
you know which one? Tell us now.
Huh?
You can accumulate, start here, do a bit more around 160, then 170. I mean, it's very difficult to find a technical level in this circumstance. There is 157.30, 158. I've got levels, but all depends what's going to happen after that PCE. If the MOF is angry enough or not to intervene, that's going to be the big question. I suspect that move down to 155 has been perhaps a quick price check, and then the market panicking a little bit. But then, since there was no follow through, everybody needs to buy back, and here we are now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, since it's a tough trade or no trade, how about Euro? I want to see if my RSI work calls this, because at the lows here, 106, there may have been a little divergence, but when I have to use my, cursor to find out what the readings are, that's not much of a divergence. And so I'm betting, because of this confirmed low, that there'll be another low to follow. And this time, I think we will set up a divergence under 106. So, that's my trade. That's my trade going into PCE.
Yeah, we've got a big week upcoming, Dale, for everything, but for the dollar. I mean, starts with PCE today, but then next week we're getting European CPIs. Then we got a Fed. Then we got the end of month. Then we got the NFP at the end of the week. I mean, you name it.
Don't we also have the refunding package and Yellen making a speech?
Yeah, on the first,
Yeah, so
enough stuff to talk about again next week, and for markets to move, I'm sure.
Okay. All right. So Euro pound really hasn't bounced back from that pretty negative day. Better start to hold here, or it's targeting these. Got to hold in here.
Back in the box.
So,
it's gone back in the box. It's gone back in the box.
Yeah. It looks like a descending triangle. You just have a flat line here. you know. But they do happen from top, so it's not exactly classic, but you know, it
Classically
is.
sideways.
I think it's going to finally resolve itself just to flush everyone, and then it'll probably be the bottom. But you know, this here. Anyway, you guys know what I'm trying to do. Just a straight line across this 85 level.
That's my number.
Okay. Because that would measure pretty good too, wouldn't it? 85, 7.5, 82.5 viable.
It's on a break, yeah. It's possible on a break, but it's going to take something to break that. We've got those lows around 83s, 82 and a 3/4 around that area, yeah, around those lows. But I see no reason why at the moment 85 breaks. So I'll just do my usual. If we get back down now, I'll head back to my longs and try and get them off on the rallies.
Yeah. It's
Play the
almost
range.
like could this whole thing be distribution for another one of these? You know, I don't know. Anyway, I favor the shorts. In fact, you know, it's possible that the cable has already bottomed, and euro could make a new low with, say, cable pulling back deep but not making a new low. That's something else I'll be looking for a turn in the dollar is cable not making a new low with the euro making a new low. So we'll see. You guys want to talk risk? Blake, you want to talk S&Ps? Like, you know, I didn't get to my 5150 level yet. I don't know. Is this it here, or does it still have legs?
Well, first of all, let's discuss a few things. We got PCE today. It's obviously a big deal, especially after yesterday's advanced GDP. I know your internet was down and you might have missed the thing about the advanced PCE data is that you had, you know, strong prices, really strong prices, and weaker data, which Mish and I, because I ended up interviewing her for you. You know, the first thing I said to her, I'm like, stagflation. She's like, yep, that's stagflation, right? I mean, that's what those numbers are suggesting that might be coming down the pipe. So now that's why the PCE is going to be in such in focus today, even though we're not expecting a big variable. But if we see or variation, excuse me, from the data, from expectations of what I meant to say. Sorry, you know, early in the morning, Dale. But the point is that the market's really going to be laser focused on that right now. And I mean, frankly, you think about like where the stock market has bounced to. I mean, the S&P has bounced to what, 50% retracement, maybe, not even quite. Well, actually 50% was 5108, the high that we were at today on the S&P, like ETF from Oanda is at 5101. So we came 7 points away from that, you know, following the strong earnings from Microsoft and Google overnight. And so we're 50% back. We're at previous support. It's current resistance. You know, it's a pretty key level in the market. You know, I think whether we're 50 points higher or 50 points lower by the end of the day has more to do with what comes in PCE. If the data shows a little bit of softness, you know, this market's going to see 5150, maybe even 5200. And if it comes in a little hot, we're going to be revisiting, you know, these lows probably sometime next week. So, and being a betting man, I happen to be a betting man, considering the positions I have on the market. I would think that that after yesterday's data, the risks are tilted a little bit to you know, a little firmer PCE. So and you can see it. You know, you got some hesitation in the currency market. Not yen is on its own, you know, on its own program right now. But you look at the euro, it's stalling ahead of the underside of a triangle. Sterling stalling, you know, ahead of the 618 retracement. Even the Aussie and the Kiwi are starting to struggle after having a nice little squeeze the last couple of days, and the dollar Canadian is holding well above its breakout point. So, you look around at the rest of the dollar complex, and it looks like, yeah, you guys think that it's disinflationary data coming in. The dollar doesn't believe it. The dollar's like, you better show it to me. If not, the dollar is going to go on another rampage. So,
yeah,
I think where it all
euro,
stands.
yeah, just like the euro has a confirmed low, which implies another low. Canada on the daily and on the 4 hour at those highs up there confirmed as well.
Yeah.
With a decent reading, which implies there could be another high in USD CAD. What I wanted to point out was 10-year yields did get to the 78.6 level yesterday, and they're coming off a little bit. And TLT still hasn't done it, right? It's made a few attempts to get back in here, but there are a couple of things that say, you should probably look for maybe a turn to the upside. The first is they've been selling TLT puts all week, okay, with the market going down. And then with this happening, we do have a divergence at new lows. I still say you wait for the signal, but there are some things that tell you should be alert for the signal. The divergence and put selling during a declining market are bets that the decline is pretty priced in, or else maybe there was just a lot of extra premium in the TLT puts.
Real quick, correct me if I'm wrong. And Ryan and Kman, you probably been paying a little bit closer attention than I have this week. I feel like I've been underwater in a lot of meetings this week. The auctions that we've had this week have been mediocre at best. And I think that lack of demand for I think we had some 2s and 5s that were auctioned off, some shorter term notes that were auctioned off earlier this week. Those auctions weren't like phenomenal, like gangbusters, which has kept the bond market a little subdued. Did I get a different read on? Did you guys get a different read on that?
Nah, they went through relatively smoothly, Blake, but no gangbusters, no
Right,
gang.
it wasn't gangbusters, and that's kind of
But
kept the
yeah,
market.
even some a little on the weak side, but yeah, they went through relatively smoothly, I would say.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway, that may be a little might have attributed it a little bit to this down move in the TLT, but it hasn't really equated to a stronger dollar. And I think that's the takeaway that I've had is you look at Boone's, take a look at Boone's,
I don't
and
have
you can
them
pull it
up.
up
Why
on.
don't you grab it?
Okay, I'll grab the charts, and I'll come back to the S&P here in a minute, but you take a look at Boone's. You can do it this way too, because I think this has been a really good illustration of it. Because earlier this week, what happened with German Boone's here is you saw us break down through this bearish wedge, and when I targeted this week in ForexAnalytix, when I'm like, oh, we're gonna see 128.30 level in the coming weeks, and this is several days ago, like 3 days ago. We're like, we could theoretically be here like next week, like early next week. I mean, this is a big route in German Boons. You're seeing, and again, you got treasuries are under pressure too, breaking the 161% extension. So this is the bond market's kind of one of I know people are paying attention to it, but are they paying enough attention to it? I guess that's the question I have to ask. But anyway, yeah, all this we do analysis on 30 different instruments here on ForexAnalytix, not just FX that you guys can read that's updated every day, and several different analysis formats. Anyway, let's talk about. I want to talk about the reason why Kman and Ryan were up all night last night. Probably how many hours you sleep last night, Ryan?
I don't know. I think I got a pretty good 5 or 6 hours in the end, in between getting
that's
up for CPI and then the BOJ, and then going back to bed and getting up for UEDA.
yeah. And I have to say, okay, so when the Tokyo CPI came out, I was in the chat room and I was like, holy shnikes, that was some really weak data. Not a lot of action. Obviously, no one wanted to do anything ahead of the BOJ, but really weak numbers on that Tokyo CPI print. Then obviously, the BOJ 4 hours later or 4.5 hours later, and then we've seen really, the dollar yen took off. I actually was short dollar yen. I had a small position. I've been planning on being short dollar yen above 150. 152 for like weeks, and once we got up towards 153, 154, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna stake my claim. Well, I got stopped out of it yesterday. It wasn't big, I didn't want to be large, obviously on a bullish breakout, but it's you plan these trades, and some of them work out, some of them don't. This one didn't. I got stopped out of my dollar yen, but that was due to a lot of inaction. So how do you read the BOJ overnight? I mean, obviously Ueda didn't give us much to chew on, did he, Brian?
No, not at all. There were a couple of bits and bobs in there. The forecast went up for inflation quite significantly.
Yeah, that
Bit of
forecast was
wording on
big.
FX. Yeah, a bit of wording off on FX, and obviously dropping the wording on buying the same amount of bonds. There wasn't an awful lot in there. They're on the path. We know that there's conditions that may get them to hike, and there's conditions that may not get them to hike. And if it's not hawkish, then the market's going to take them to the cleaners on yen pairs, which is what happened. I was pretty surprised that Tokyo CPI didn't bring a reaction, because it was a huge old miss.
It was a big miss, like 1.6% versus like 2 point something expected.
Yeah, and I know I put in the chat room yesterday the thing from Morgan Stanley about the tuition thing dropping out, and that could cause a shock. I don't know if it was that, because the numbers, those year-on-year numbers, were just far too big for a component like that. And we saw bigger drops in pumpkins and horse mackerel when me and Kay were going through the data waiting for the BOJ. That was fun.
I was that was actually quite entertaining. I was, I'd had been 14 hours sitting in my desk watching you guys trying to dice through the Tokyo CPI data in the ForexAnalytix chat room. If you guys didn't catch it, it was actually quite entertaining, because they were going through the Excel spreadsheets of
the whole lot. We were looking at all the individual basket items, and keep going up. And we had nothing else to do at 3 o'clock in the morning. So what else are you going to do?
Yeah, this is right. I got you guys would be, if you weren't entertained by the yen price action, you would have been entertained with Ryan and Kman going line item through the Tokyo CPI data. I mean, I was, like I said, you guys had me entertained, because 15 hours sitting my ass in the seat, and
our conclusion was inconclusive.
That's good. I'm glad it was inconclusive. So anyway, this is all what we were chatting about in the chat room through the BOJ last night. If you guys were out there in the Twitter sphere, twiddling your thumbs or talking to, different trolls out there, we were in there, having some very constructive conversations about what was happening with the BOJ last night. So, okay, well, let's cut that, because Forex Gal, she asked, and Kman, I'm going to come to you in just 1 second. She asked, hey, Blake, what are fibs showing you here in the dollar yen? Look, I think there's a couple levels that we need to pay attention to. I mean, obviously we're in kind of a runaway freight train, and Kman, you mentioned this yesterday. Don't worry, I'm going to come back to you. But he mentioned this yesterday about, maybe the BOJ is going to be, or the Ministry of Finance will wait till after the PCE data. The comments you made yesterday, which we'll come back to that. I want to share with you guys just some pretty key levels that we're coming up towards. Okay. So you can see the 161% extension of this move here comes in at 159.50. The 127% extension of this is, remember, this is the 2022 to 2023. This is the range. We come up at the 127% extension right here at the same level, basically 159.
I like that one.
Yeah. So if you think about where we're at right now, 150, roughly 157, that's 159 and change. There's 200
Yeah.
more pips to get up there
Right.
if we're going to reach for it. Which after Ueda's inaction, it's entirely possible. So you got channel resistance at 157. Let's just call it 157.50. So if we have strong PCE data, we plow right through 157. It's a barrier. We're going to be right through it within 2 minutes. We're going to see that 157.50, and beyond that, you're talking now 159 and change. And all that's relatively doable, I think. So, Kman, going back to you. So yesterday you mentioned, maybe the Ministry of Finance is just going to have to wait for any type of intervention efforts. Might wait until after PCE. Have your thoughts changed there? What do you think?
No, because they didn't act so far, so it's still very possible. But the problem is that the longer they wait, imagine that we get a little hot PCE, the more they are going to have to spend to intervene. So where before they could have tried to keep it below 150, now that's already further away than what a usual, if we can call interventions usual, than what a usual intervention would grant, which is between 500 and 600 points or so. They are going to have to spend an enormous amount of money if that PCE comes in hotter. Then they will, but they can intervene. Of course, they can intervene, and the risks are there because we are entering slowly the range of pips that they don't want to see on the back of one BOJ meeting or so, or the 1-day move. We started around 55.5. We're in the high 56s, add another 100 points, and we will have moved 250 points, which is excessive in their opinion. And well, that was in Corona's mind anyway.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to 6J here in a second, but look at like relative strength. If you sit there and you look at RSI today, right, Dale, and you go, oh my God, that's so overbought. Look, we're at 88, almost 90 on RSI. If you go back historically, we have been more overboughterness just 2 years ago. So if you don't think that we can't go any higher in price because relative strength is so high, maybe you should look at the direction of RSI versus the level of the RSI. It is.
Yeah, I would never sell a market with an RSI like that.
That's pointing straight up. It's tough to do. I mean,
it would
you do it speculatively with. If you do that, you have to say, okay, I'm gonna step in here, kind of like what I did, ahead of the BOJ. I'm like, I'm gonna step in here, small size, and my stops are here. If I get stopped out, I get stopped out, and that's the only route you can take. You can't take any meaningful stab at the market when you have this erected momentum. RSI right there, right?
And the issue is, and I'll stop after that. But the issue
is, go ahead, Kay.
I will repeat again once more. The issue is not only dollar yen. Look at all the yen pairs.
I was going to pull up the 6J for you. There you go.
An absolute hard time.
Who is that? Yen strong
in current context.
Yep. I mean, look at the 6J. And by the way, you can see how I was trying to play it. This is exactly what my play was, which obviously didn't work out, which is fine. But yeah, look at the 6J. I mean, we are just, this has to be alarming to the Ministry of Finance and the BOJ right now. Wouldn't you say, Kay?
Should be.
You would think, yeah.
They have to raise rates. What are they afraid of, Kman?
Yeah, exactly, Dale. I mean, that's exactly it. They could have. They had a bit of a chance. Wouldn't it be only because of the weaker yen? But Ueda, he even said that the weakness of the yen had not yet had a big material impact on inflation. So I mean, he's actually fighting against it. So yeah, he's not helping the MOF, that's for sure.
Yeah, and then he said the jump in inflation forecast is probably going to happen via oil, which they can do nothing about. So everything that looked hawkish, he went and torpedoed with comments after. So that's why we're just about probably to tap on 157 in.
God damn the pusher man.
So hey, real quick, we got just a few minutes. Let's not forget that we had some really big earnings overnight. We had and shoot, I'm sorry, Greg is here. Greg, we're not going to have a chance to show your charts. I'll just show them this way really quick. Gregor, good morning.
Hey, morning.
Hey, sorry, buddy. I was. It
Yeah,
feels
it's
like
a busy day. I know.
Yeah. So what are you thinking right now?
Let's see
And I'll
you,
pull up
Kurt.
your charts.
Well, I still think that we have a pretty nice rebound on Aussie. So my focus will be on Aussie for the next few trading days. We have seen China stocks also picking up. The Hang Seng Index, in my opinion, is breaking from the head and shoulders bottom formation. And I will post these charts actually in our chat room as well. And I think that Aussie has a pretty nice, more upside potential. Of course, the US PCE could potentially turn these things around. But if Aussie, because inflation, as you know, came out stronger this week, if Aussie will be able to hold around current levels, or even if we see some dips, I still think that next week there can be some very interesting opportunity on the upside.
All right, very good. And real quick, Dale, Kirk is here, so if you want to try to bring him over ahead of time, he said he's here. All right, Greg, what else? How are you reading the yen? I'll pull up your yen chart right now.
Really?
But how are you feeling? But go ahead. What's that?
I mean, dollar yen, I think it can be headed towards 160. If you will open maybe monthly chart.
Coming.
Yeah, so I think that 160, that's going back to 1990. We had a pretty nice strong breakout. So this consolidation, very, very big one, is finished. So I think that there is room for more upside.
I'm going to ask everybody, what were you doing in 1990? I was graduating from high school. Anybody else?
I was 6 years old.
All right. So, and this is your monthly chart, monthly count here. Great stuff.
I still think that later this year, we will see a reversal and a pullback into that kind of a wave 4. But of course, we firstly have to complete and see this extension slowing down a bit. I think that maybe during the summer, we could see some reversals, if not earlier.
Gotcha. Now, why don't you talk me through this as I'm getting set up? I'm not going to be able to show charts here because if you want to see Greg's work, you can actually just see it on ForexAnalytix. You can just click on Elliott Wave and see all of his stuff. But talk us through how you feel about equities up here around the 5,100 level as I get all set up today.
Well, as we discussed last when we had this interview, we said that we are focusing on two levels on the S&P 500. It's going to be around 5,000, and so far, as long as we are above 5,000, I just think that there is room for further rally. I'm not saying back to the highs, but I think that 5,200, 220 is possible. But if someone maybe wants to play on the long side, maybe German DAX, I mean, shares in Europe are looking much better, in my opinion. This week, we have a pretty nice, solid wave structure there. And if this on Friday, we close around current levels or even higher, I just think that we will resume towards much higher levels next week.
All right. Well, thank you, Gregor, for being here today. Like I said, it was just a busy session. I appreciate you coming in and giving us your thoughts. I'm going to pull up the data flash really quick. So we're gonna be monitoring obviously the PCE data as it comes out. And let me ask the guys this, Ryan, any last minute thoughts before the PCE comes out?
Yeah, just watch it. It's going to swing the dollar around. People keep looking at this and thinking that if it's a big number or whatever, it's going to help or hinder the Japan and the BOJ and whatever. They're not going to trade individual US data points, but if we do get a huge spike up in dollar yen, that might just be push them over the edge.
Okay, very good. Kman, thoughts?
No, absolutely not. Yeah, it should come in on the strong side, but what's going to happen then? We're trading value data end of month. Perhaps dollar takes back a little bit, but then we run into intervention risk. So I don't know.
That's a great point. We do have end of month. This is corporate month end would be today, right? Is that
yeah,
correct?
But the past few months they haven't been too active, so we haven't really seen a lot of impact on the back of it. So, but still, to monitor.
Yeah, great. All right, thank you very much, Dale. We have a few seconds. You're going to be joining Kurt here in a second. So data's coming up. You guys stand by. Get ready. We got yields right in the middle. Dollar index to the left. S&P to the right. Let's see what kind of data we get. Dollar's coming off. Yields are coming off. I don't see the data yet. Do you guys see it?
0.3
Yeah.
core.
Hot.
Wow, 2.7. Wow. That knee-jerk reaction lower first. I'm not sure where that came from. Price index is higher. And yields are coming off and the dollar's weaker. Why are stocks so strong on a strong PCE data?
Relief from rates.
Yeah, I don't.
The month-on-month number came in as expected, 0.3%. That was the one, the core month-on-month. That was the one that was expected to maybe show a hotter print.
Yeah,
based on
but
those
you have
numbers.
to be buying that dollar dip. I mean, like, why would anybody sell into that? Like, I was just looking at it, and I unfortunately didn't trade it, but I'm like, why didn't I just hit the dollar there? Like, buy it. Like, I don't get it. So anyway, interesting reaction, that we got such a positive reaction in equities. And sorry,
I
I
think the
don't know
market
why I got.
expected this after the last data, right? That the number would come in a little bit hot, you know.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, and the dollar, all the way around is a little weaker, but I don't know if that's going to sustain.
The wider picture is PCE year on year has gone up 2 pips and the core has stayed unchanged at 2.8. It's sticky, the same as the rest of it.
Yeah, which I know is expected, but still, I don't see why the dollar is selling off here. I don't know. I don't understand why the reaction's the way it is. That's why I think that the euro is going to fade right back below, 107.20, probably, by the time the market opens. And there we go. We just, or within the next 30 seconds. So, and which obviously the dollar's, recovering at this point. Because I didn't get that reaction. I don't understand. Anyway, it's been a hell of a week, people. And it's been a hell of a week to be a trader and a hell of a week to be in the markets. And if you aren't, jumping in the ForexAnalytix community, being part of us chatting around and talking about everything that's happening, my opinion, you're missing out. So make sure you take a trial. It's only $1 for 10 days. Try us out. Dale, have a great interview with Kurt. Ryan, Kman, thank you guys for being around in Asia last night. I know that's a very, very long day for you guys. And thank you for all your inputs all week long. And Grega, thanks for stepping in today. It's nice to hear your voice, my friend.
Thank you, Dream Team.
Cheers, guys. Have a good weekend.
Have a great one, Coach.
Real nice work with a lot of critical stuff. Every day was critical. We're reaching critical mass here. Be careful.
Every day. Every day.
Every day is critical, and every day we try to be credible during critical days, which happen every day. And when things started to heat up overseas between Israel and Iran, I thought of one guy. I thought of Kirk, because Kirk Spano used to talk about the possibility of something happening with Iran. Welcome back, Kirk.
How are you doing this morning?
Good. I see your dog his coat looks healthy. He doing okay?
I actually have a screen share if you want it.
You have what?
I actually put together some slides for today if you want me to show them.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
Thanks for the effort. You know how to do it, right? Okay,
Yep.
beautiful.
Are we up there?
Got it.
All right. So this is a presentation I did about a week ago, but I added some stuff at the end for you. And I thought it was relevant to your discussion on the yen just now.
Okay.
So I think we have a lot to talk about. Where do you want to start?
Let's just go with your presentation, buddy.
All right. Well, the big narrative is inflation. So we just had the inflation number and it was sticky, but it did not really go up. So what we are seeing with inflation is that it is a cyclical thing. It is not secular. And I've been on that train for 40 years, since I could read. And it's really demographics based. Most of the inflation issues are fixable, mainly because they're natural. The inflation that we see is the man-made part, right? The printing of money, but also the problems with immigration policy. So when you take a look at what's going on with inflation, you see that more and more components of inflation have a read under 3%. That's what this chart shows. And this is from Fundstrat with Tom Lee. So we don't have a lot of things that are causing inflation. There are three that are really the big drivers that are going to be tough to offset, but they're not insurmountable in the intermediate and long term. They're just a problem in the short term. So you have housing, inventories are tight. That's going to take years to fix. But lower interest rates would actually really help that. I can say that as a private equity guy who's trying to build buildings, that rates a point or two lower would really help with internal rates of return and get a lot of housing built. The second thing is oil. That's controlled by Saudi Arabia for the most part, and I have some charts that I'll show you on that. And then finally, we have labor. Labor inflation is the one thing that I think probably stays sticky for a long time. And ultimately, that's good in a world where product prices, manufactured goods, the price pressure is down. So we have deflationary demographics. We have technology, which is disinflationary, but we have, policy that is inflationary. So we have inflationary policy and practice, but really the natural forces are deflationary and disinflationary at this point. And you try to balance those things out, and you get governments and central banks that screw up, right? They make mistakes. So, or they have long and variable legs, I guess would be a way to put it.
Kirk, how about things that if you drop them on your foot, they hurt? How much time it takes to develop a new copper mine, uranium, all these materials, that it's more of a supply issue with a lot of them. And a lot of them strategically are in unfriendly countries as well. So, things like tin and cocoa, and it really hasn't happened in the grains yet, but it looks like it's starting to. That we have supply disruptions due to either regulation or government nationalizations. What about the supply issues that we have contributing to inflation?
So you have a number of small supply issues, but nothing that's major, except in chocolate. I mean, they're really being, tough on the chocolate. I mean, that's a rough one in my life. But you take a look at copper. Let's talk copper. Copper has three gigantic mines that are basically idle right now, or at low capacity. And there's 6 more under development. I was just reading up on this. You take a look at Anglo American. The copper problems are not insurmountable, but they are a thing that's going to take several years to fix. So that's one of the pressures that'll be there. The need for more copper doesn't kick in for about 3 or 4 more years, though, because that's really directly tied to the electrification of the economy and EVs, right? Yeah. So, I'm big on EVs. However, since 2020, after the Consumer Electronics Show, and I also got to meet Elon Musk a few years before that, I've never believed that the hype cycle for EVs would be much different than any other hype cycle, right? We got the big spike up, all the excitement, the early adopters. And now we're in that 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year period where we just have to go through the adoption. So you have Tesla down 50%. I think it can drop another 50%. You know, you take a look at how long it's going to take for people to get into EVs, and this is just a slower process than what the hype was a few years ago, right? It's very typical Gartner hype cycle stuff. So by 2030, you know, most of the passenger cars, not bigger vehicles, but the passenger cars will in fact be EVs. You know, you're seeing it out of China. You have the factories and the semiconductors coming online here in the next 2 to 3 years. So, you know, the idea that everybody was going to have an EV by this year was always silly. But the idea that we're not going to be getting into EVs in the 2030s is equally silly. So there's not huge supply constraints. You know, we have lithium all over the world that's getting developed right now. One of my favorite investments is Lithium Americas. You just got a chance to buy them on the dip, and that's what I've been doing. They're going to develop the mine right there in Nevada, and
Wow,
you're going to
because
have
that's tough. It's tough
Yeah.
to get permits for lithium.
it's permitted, it's financed, it's ready.
What's the
to go.
symbol, bro?
LAC.
Oh yeah, I think I've seen it before.
Yeah, and there's an interesting history on that company. You know, they also have assets in Central South America, and they split the company in two pieces a while back. So I originally learned about this company because I invested in the company they bought. So I invested in Millennial Lithium
Okay.
3, 4, 5 years ago. I don't remember exactly. And 6 months later, Lithium Americas bought them. So, you
Do
know,
you
maybe,
still take lithium?
yeah. You know, I'm one of those guys. So, you know,
I'm sorry, man. It flew out of my mouth. I'm sorry.
yeah.
It stabilized me in the past. Anyway.
Yeah, no. I mean, I've got good friends and a cousin. I mean, it's hey, look, anybody who has something that needs to be treated
Yeah.
because it'll make
All
you feel
right.
better.
All right. I shouldn't have made a joke out of it, but
Oh
Forex
no,
gal
you know,
laughed. Anyway.
tragedy plus time equals comedy, right? So
Oh, I like that equation.
that
All
that
right.
is that's the old Robin Williams equation, or man, I think it goes even further back than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you know, you take a look at all the materials, and there's not really anything that's in huge shortage. You have supply chain issues, there's no doubt about it. You have oligopolies, you have small ownership structures, you know, that screw things up or tighten things up on purpose. You know, there's a lot of manipulation in materials because they are hard to produce. So, you know, you're going to see Saudi Arabia, and again, I have the oil chart here. You're going to see Saudi Arabia continue to do exactly what I said on this show a couple of years ago, is keep oil range bound. So, you know, you take a look at all these things and you start to wonder, all right, if supply chains can get fixed, there's not really a commodity super cycle. I've never been on board with that, and I'm a Jim Rogers guy. You know, I mean, he was formative in my early years, but I don't think that there's a commodity super cycle developing because technology makes our need for the materials less and less and less over time, because the scientists just keep coming up with ways to use less of the rare earth metals, or less copper, or less this, or less the other thing. And the EVs, you know, you have Elon Musk out there who I think is a whack job. However, he's a brilliant whack job, right? He's a TV guy.
Yeah.
And he is pushing the envelope and been pushing the envelope on EVs, and they keep improving assembly lines, construction. You got 3D manufacturing starting to finally come into play, as you can use more inputs for that. So you're not going to have super shortages. Now, that doesn't mean you can't make great trades, because you're going to have spikes. You're going to have years where things go in one direction for a while, right? I mean, cocoa is a great example. There's not an easy fix for cocoa. The price of cocoa is probably in a permanently higher band now a higher trading range for a very, very long time, you know, and anytime I think it's going to last more than a generation, I say forever, and then people get mad at me because, oh, nothing's forever. But to me, 20, 30 years, that's forever. That's close enough to forever that I don't care, right? Because in the long run, Dale, what are we? We're all dead, right?
Well,
So,
you know what? Even though that may happen, I've decided I'm going to wear a bow tie like Jimmy Rogers.
there you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny.
Anyway,
I wore a bow tie last year for the Kentucky
your
Derby.
poker tournament.
Well, you're keeping up, eh? Yeah.
Huh?
I have not worn one for a poker tournament, but I did.
It'll psych
Derby.
people out, man. You gotta try it. It'll
Yeah,
psych them out.
My goal this year is a World Series of Poker final table. I don't know what event, but
Oh,
I've
well,
won some tickets in, and I'm playing pretty well right now.
all right,
You know,
good, man.
and for folks who think, oh, this guy's just a gambler, I'll tell you what, if you're a real poker player,
You're
then
not a
you know
gambler.
that it's all about risk management, and
Yeah.
investing is all about risk management, right? Three most important
You're
words.
good poker players are also grinders. They grind it out like good traders do.
That's right, and that's why hedge funds in the interview process look for poker players now. So
Huh. Okay.
that's true. That there's a special on 60 Minutes or Nightline or one of those shows. In any case, let's jump to oil because we always talk oil, and I have to get to that chart. I have all kinds of neat stuff here. If anybody wants this chart book, it's on my website at fundamentaltrends.com. Let's see here. Okay. Here you go. So I took a couple things here. These are two of the last couple times I've been on. Has it really been a year since I've been on?
Yeah, I don't know what happened. You didn't get in the rotation.
Yeah,
should be 3 months about.
Okay,
we'll get you back in the rotation.
Probably my fault. I haven't been twittering much. I just got back into twittering, and that gets me engaged.
You're having a great year in Bitcoin. You thought it might happen last year, but it's happening this year. So you had to wait another year.
Yeah, and I bought under 20 grand. Yeah, I bought a lot of it under 20 grand when we talked about it. So, it's been a good run. I will tell you, just as an aside, I'm writing an article. It's going to go on Seeking Alpha. And if you don't follow me at Seeking Alpha, I wish you would. The future of Bitcoin has become more certain. And that is something I couldn't say back in 2016 when I was trading it in 2017. I've made some big profitable trades in Bitcoin, and I always traded it because I wasn't sure if it was forever. I'm pretty sure now. I think that what you're seeing is Bitcoin is becoming a global currency or a global currency hedge. And really, it's a hedge against the dollar becoming too weak or too strong, which we'll talk about in a second. You have so many countries adopting Bitcoin at this point as a balance sheet item that if it becomes part of the currency basket, and I think it's going to be, you're going to see at least a $10 trillion market cap on it, and it could be as high as 30 trillion. So when you back that out, I mean, it's somewhere between a 10x and a 30x from here. So, I know that people want to say, it's built out of nothing, but it's not. Every currency is supported by the economic productive capacity of who owns that currency, right? It's not the country necessarily. It doesn't have to be defined by country. The euro is defined by a group of countries. So why can't Bitcoin be defined by a group of countries, companies, and sovereign wealth funds and super rich people? It's their productive capacity. They're choosing to make it a store of value, and as a way of getting away from central banks devaluing their very large piles of Dragon's gold. So I think that you're going to see Bitcoin continue to go on the balance sheets of El Salvador and Ecuador and Colombia and a lot of African nations and, most of the Middle Eastern nations and China and Russia. It's it's the Western mind that fights it a little bit. But I think that we in the West have to realize that most of the rest of the world, aside from aspiring to have our lifestyle, also are a little jealous and a little angry. So if they can have something that offsets the impact of the dollar on them, they're going to buy it and they're going to store some of their wealth in it. And there is definitely a component of Smog the Dragon laying on his pile of gold trying to protect it there. And you have the criminality, there's no doubt, but you have criminality in the dollar. I mean, watch any movie, what do? They throw all the money into a big black briefcase and they run away with it. So, nothing really changes other than what's going to get wiped out isn't the dollar. But I think you're going to see the yen and the euro and all these other currencies get weaker, and you're going to see hundreds, couple hundred small nation currencies go away as they dollarize and Bitcoinize, and then whoever their major trading partners are, they'll add some of that too. So, Bitcoin 10 to 30x from here over the next generation. And I think that at this point, I'm willing to say that out loud and not just wonder about it.
Okay. Thank you. Can we spend the rest of the segment covering your thoughts? I know things have calmed down. We've had the 2 retaliations. It's been Passover since Monday. It ends the end of the month, kind of like Ramadan. They didn't attack during Ramadan. Do you think that it's over or about to accelerate to a new level? I mean, it already did. I think we crossed the Rubicon with firing projectiles from your own soil.
Iran. Yeah. I have been following this stuff for 40 years like you. And yeah. I expected this confrontation years ago. That I thought this was going to happen 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And I don't think Iran wants an all-out war. I think Netanyahu wouldn't mind. But I think that from a strategy standpoint, the United States has Netanyahu under its thumb. So he's not going to do anything more than what he did, which is attack the bases where the drones came from. And then, the proxies. He's not going to attack Tehran. He's not going to attack the nuclear facilities. There's a lot of things he's not going to do, because if he does, it could be the end of Israel, right? It could be World War III. So, in my mind, it settles down because the consequences of not settling down are so horrific. And in a case where things get horrific, I'm not too worried about the price of oil, man, because we're all going to be trying to make sure we have food. So, I always discount the end of the world scenarios, because if it's the end of the world, well, then it's the end of the world. I don't think you're going to see oil get much higher. I think it's going to be in this range bound area. Now, could it spike up, for a hot minute? It absolutely could. It could. You could get 6 months.
I've read from Anas El-Haji that Iran does not have the capabilities to block the Strait of Hormuz.
No, I mean, it would take, I believe I read in one of it might have been even Foreign Affairs. I mean, if it's in Foreign Affairs, you should be reading it because it's cheap. But I have some higher end resources for geopolitical analysis too. It would take, I believe, one battle group from the U.S. Navy from a distance to wipe out most of the Iranian Navy and the Yemeni pirates and everything else. I'm not really sure why we haven't done that. I think it's because they haven't, they've come up to the red line. They haven't quite crossed it. So, winning that war from a military standpoint, in a conventional sense would be pretty easy and pretty fast.
Well, let me ask you this. Well, okay, what's the problem?
The problem is, what if they actually have nukes?
Okay, that's a problem, because
That's
they're
the problem.
also it's not like their population would not like a regime change. The
No.
women, the people inside of Iran aspire to what you were talking about, to have a
Right.
better life.
Yeah.
And,
Well,
Iran's been a thorn inside, not just to Israel,
to everyone.
but to every other Sunni nation there.
Yeah.
So pressure from the inside, pressure from the outside, maybe something could happen. And maybe it doesn't even have to be militarily.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
I have long wondered why Muslim, excuse me, Muslim women haven't sent a secret message to each other to slit the throats of all the guys they didn't like. I think it's up to the women of a lot of places to save the world from bad men. And I think it's been happening over a couple of generations. So we'll see how fast that moves.
Okay, so it really is kind of a non-event. It's just television.
Yeah, I think it's something
just ratings.
I think it's, well, I mean, there's definitely spike potential, right? I mean, there's definitely news potential, but I think it, if you hit a home run trade because you're that kind of a trader, then you have to be very quick to take your profits, because the other side is a lot of people, a lot of money, a lot of power that'll try to fix things fast, right?
David Jensen writes, he's an attendee.
Yeah.
Nobody uses Bitcoin anymore because no privacy, can attach smart contract. John McAfee said is going to zero because of that. John McAfee passed away.
So say, isn't he dead?
Yeah, he's passed away. And he also said once, David, that he was going to eat something on his body if Bitcoin didn't go to 100,000. Right. So anyway, I interviewed McAfee once.
Did you?
So yeah, what a character.
Was he really nuts?
At that time, he wanted to be the nominee for the Libertarian Party, and he was back in the U.S. Anyway, he's on the island with Jim Morris.
I read the comment in chat, and nothing in that is really true. First of all, you can attach smart contracts to it. That's what they've been developing for a couple of years. It's not going to be a development tool like Ethereum, but it will definitely do smart contracts, and that is actually an important component. And as far as the secrecy, if you run it through an exchange or some intermediary, yes, you lose some of the anonymity. However, it still is a major offset. It's a major hedge against the dollar. Either being too high or too small. So, in the last chart I just showed, and this is relevant to oil, is, way back here in 2012, when everybody was predicting the dollar gonna collapse and Jim Rickards was still running around. He's still running around. I said the dollar was going to have a long-term bull market and get up into a range that I've been calling the millennial dollar. Well, we're there, right? So, I mean, I don't know, how do you call a 12-year bull market and still have people tell you you're wrong? The dollar is going to be permanently in a range. I mean, and when I say permanently, that doesn't mean it can't trade out for a hot minute. It can. But this is really the range around 100, which I said, I talked about it here.
Yeah.
I don't know if you had that. When I said it was going to peak, it was September. I'm pretty good on the dollar.
Are we, in your view, are we near the upper end of the range for another trip down?
Yes.
Or continue? Yes. Okay.
Yes. So September 2022, I said the dollar was peaking. Here's September 2022.
Yeah.
Okay. And I called the bottom when Biden got elected. Now, had Trump won, the dollar would have come down more. and you would
So
have had a major
if
disruption.
you think the dollar's in a peaking mode here, we're 6 months from the election. You think Trump's going to win, and that'll be behind a weak dollar?
I think the election's a toss-up right now.
Okay.
So
Do you think that
I
they'll?
have an opinion.
All right. Who are the courts going to have to decide this? Because no one's going to accept the results.
Well, or
Whoever
the
loses.
CIA.
The CIA might decide it. Okay, that sounds democratic to me. Anyway, Kirk, it was great to have you back and hear your voice and
Yeah.
hear what you're thinking. You still like oil or natural gas shares here?
Yeah, I was actually getting to this. I think that we saw the inflation number come in warm. When you break out the components, you understand why. When you understand in the face of deflation that it's all policy driven, and then labor, which is going to take a long time to fix. You take a look at the dollar, you take a look at oil supply and demand, and what you come away with is this: demand for oil and gas is going to be strong through the decade, and you're going to have the oligopoly OPEC continue to control international flows. The United States is about done growing. We can replace the shale with the Gulf of Mexico and with Guyana, but there's not going to be any gigantic oil influx. So you have
Okay,
this.
how about natural gas trading near historic or 30-year lows?
If you take a look at the numbers and how fast alternative energy is growing, especially solar, you come away with one conclusion. Natural gas is very unlikely to spike as long as we're still using oil and we get all that affiliated natural gas. So, I mean, does natural gas go up from here? Yes. Does it find a new permanently higher range? I don't think so. Not until maybe ever, because by the time we stop using oil, we're going to be moving away from natural gas too. So it's a slow-handed trade, and I don't think that there's the hype in the news to make the movements as sharp. Back 20 years ago when I was trading oil and gas, it was a different market, man. And I've moved on because it's so much harder now. You take a look at these moves and they just drift. And it's because the world is changing. And in the face of this energy transition, I don't know how many of you have subscriptions to Hart Energy. I mean, read the Hart Energy stuff on the energy transition. I mean, they're big time oil and gas bulls, always have been, but they see it too. So does natural gas go up from here? Sure. But I like the oil companies best until you start seeing big EV penetration. And you have to understand that the Inflation Reduction Act, you can call it a clean energy bill, but it's really a decarbonization bill. And they put in some major, major piles of money for the oil and gas companies to help decarbonize through, carbon capture. And it's not going to be the sucking carbon out of the air type. It's going to be converting industrial processes and fuels to be in, low carbon. It's, one of my favorite investments is it's my biggest micro cap investment, is a company called Ametis out in California. They're building a sustainable aviation fuel plant and biodiesel.
Oh, that's made out of soybeans.
It's not the way they do it.
Oh, okay, because I heard they were using soybean oil for jets now.
This company in California, Ametis, AMTX, they use agricultural waste from all the farms. Yeah, and then they also have renewable natural gas from the dairies. Okay. They have about $600 million of new financing that they've just announced in the last couple of months, from EB5 tax credits, inflation investment tax credits, production tax credits, LCFS is coming online. They just got all kinds of money getting thrown at them now, and nobody's found this company yet. It's just starting to move the last year, and they have a set of contracts with the major airlines. So they're already contracted for billions of dollars of sustainable aviation fuel. So and they have a deal with Loves, So I mean, that's one of their major partners. Is Trillium is owned by Loves. So you take a look at some of these little, companies that are going to make a fortune on the Inflation Reduction Act. If you think like a private equity investor, which is that's my side hustle, that's who I hang out with. That's why I'm getting into, real estate development on the private equity side. If you think like a vulture and you think like 5 years out instead of 5 minutes out, there's huge money to be made in your sleep. So, I know how hard it is to trade. That's why I've moved away from it. I'm not telling anybody to move away from it. I'm just saying balance your book.
Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah, with some things that make you money in your sleep. And
Yeah.
micro caps and small caps. There's actually, I don't know if anybody uses a chart book. The disparity between large caps and small caps and micro caps is the biggest it's been in 25 years. Yeah, it might be ever, but I know 25 years. And the last time this happened, micro caps and small caps outperformed for over a decade. I don't think it's going to be over a decade this time. I think it's going to be several years. But Tom Lee, me, a bunch of, I mean, I won't put myself in his class, but, a lot of people with money that control money, I influence upwards of $1 billion. He influences way more than that. There's a lot of money moving that space. You're going to want to get in there sooner than later. You can chase Microsoft and Amazon and Google up. And I guess those would be the only three that I would chase. But, you take a look at the AI craze and you better ask the question, who's really going to make the money there? And I would posit it's two groups. It's going to be, I'll finish with this just because it's been on my plate. It's going to be the three big cloud providers, Amazon, Google, and Microsoft for sure. But then it's going to be all the companies that benefit from using AI because their profit margins are going to go up. And that
I know I purchased some AI and I'm using it. It was transplanted into my head. And this whole interview has been driven by artificial intelligence, AIP, artificial intelligence.
I knew I could count on you for a punchline.
Anyway, so I let's not let as much time pass. Follow Kirk in his writings. You could follow him on X at his name, at Kirk Spano, and say hello to Shooter for me, and go to Alpha Trade, and he's in Bitcoin, so Kirk knows where to find Alpha, and very good analyst, where he gave you a symbol to pay attention to. So if you like that, stay in touch with his thoughts. Keep an open mind. It'll keep your account open. Nice talking to you, my trading warrior brother. Really nice.
I listen in once in a while, and I never chime in. I should probably hit the ham button.
Yeah. Let us know when you're stalking us, okay?
All right. Take care.
My buddy Kirk Spano, everyone. Everyone have a great weekend. You could join the team in 7 minutes on the Morning Edge. Hope we've added value. And remember, don't just count your, AI chips and your shares of agricultural waste to power jets. Count your blessings, and I'll see you Monday. Adios, everyone, and thanks again, Kirk.
Take care.